Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord, and welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we have 5 returning cards we need to talk about, including the Produce SSRs for Hiori and Yuika, as well as Support SSRs for Mano, Juri, and an SR for Kogane. Keep in mind that all of these cards are limited, but due to their return, we may see them return again in the future, if this is part of Takayama's plan to have limited cards return more often. Let's hope so. Starting things off, we have Hiyori. Jumping back all the way to the first anniversary of Shiny Colors, we have the SSR that introduced us to the annual 10% SSR rate banner. Hiyori 3 at the time was considered to be the least interesting of the 3 featured cards, as she struck more or less the same chords as her limited Illuminae preceding her. All of their first limited cards were built more or less the same, but Hiyori had the strongest buff at 15% versus 10 or 5, but the shortest duration at 3 turns. You rarely see Hiyori 3 nowadays, as her kit wasn't particularly coveted even on her release 2 years ago. You would still see Hiyori 1 on almost every Illuminae team, and nowadays you'll see a mix of 1, 4, and 5. I suppose that with Landing Point being a fairly decent place to build Tri-Stat, Hiyori 3 has a slight bump to her value, but it's not by much. It's a very lovely card in story, and the animation calling back to her first SSR is still pretty special to this day. Hiyori's roles are Buffer, Memory Gauge Boost, and Tri-Stat, and I low to moderately recommend pulling for Hiyori. She's not necessarily a must-needed piece, but if you're a fan of Hiyori and want more of her story, this is a card you don't want to miss out on. Hiyori's initial skill is a Vocal Dance Visual 1.5 appeal that raises your Vocal Dance and Visual by 15% for 3 turns. This links into a Memory Gauge boost of 10%. At max, she unlocks a Vocal Dance Visual 2.0 appeal that raises your Vocal Dance and Visual by 20% for 3 turns, and links into the same Memory Gauge 10% boost. Hiyori's 1-star passive is a Vocal Dance Visual 21% up that requires the turn count to be 6 or earlier. This has a 40% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal Dance Visual 10% up that requires the star count to be 10 or higher. This has a 40% chance to activate 3 times. Her 3-star uncap is a plus 200 to dance, and her memory appeal once maxed out is a Vocal Dance Visual 30% up for 3 turns that links into a mental heal of 15%. For the support recommendations, since Hiyori is a tri-stat unit, any supports that allow you to profit in multiple stats is always a positive. As such, bringing along limited Illuminae and limited HCG can maybe be the strongest start you can hope for. It's expensive, but fairly worthwhile. As for the alternatives, grab whatever other Illuminae supports you can for synergy. Permanent Meguru is a great choice. Yuika and Amana help in SP generation, while Rinzai and Choco help round out token options in Grad. No team this time. Honestly, I would say if you want to use Hiyori 3, a team similar to our Mano 6 review is probably the best. I'll make sure to link Mano 6 above. Hiyori as a center earns anywhere from a D+ to a C-. I really hope I don't have to explain in too much detail why this memory appeal is super awful. The buff itself is not particularly strong, and a 15% mental heal isn't going to do a whole lot of anything for you at any state of the game. As a unit, she gets a C. The biggest issue Hiyori runs into is that she was designed in the first year and treated as a first-year unit, unlike a certain bird we'll talk about in a bit. My assumption was that they thought a 2.0 appeal for all types would be devastating. But building Tri-Stat has never necessarily been easy, and most single-stat units will outperform Hiyori easily. Perhaps she'll be better in Landing Point, but otherwise, she's mostly here just for collection's sake. Next we have our support, Mano. Also part of the first anniversary, Mano's first limited SSR set the standard for practically every other limited SSR going forward. Having access to the first instance of Unit Mastery for SP, as well as 2 separate Stamina Masteries for 2 rooms, makes Mano still a highly coveted unit for dual-stat teams. Her only modern shortcomings are a lack of scaling support appeal, and the fact that other supports have caught up to her. She's still a widely used SSR support, and fits nicely into almost every Illuminae setup, and even Dance Visual setups. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, and Rest Boost, and her unique support skills are Unit Mastery SP, reaching plus 10 at level 70, Dance Mastery Stamina, reaching plus 5 at level 75, and Visual Mastery Stamina, reaching plus 5 at level 75. Her TFD idea is Vocal, her Insight Token for Grad is Vocal, and her proficiency in Landing Point is Vocal. Mano's 1-star passive is a Dance Visual 30% up that requires the turn count to be 6 or earlier. This has a 10% chance to activate 3 times. Her 2-star passive is a dance visual 50% up that requires the turn count to be 3 or later. This has a 10% chance to activate 3 times. Her 3-star uncap is a dance visual plus 70, and her 4-star appeal is a dance visual 2.0 that buffs your dance and visual by 20% for 3 turns. Her event uncap is a dance visual plus 25. Mano earns an S+. Mano isn't quite the be-all end-all card she used to be, as it has been 2 years. Oh, did I forget to mention that this was her 6th SSR support by this point? It had just barely been a year and she already had 6 SSRs. It's kinda wild. Now, Mano still has great passives, a decent 4-star appeal, and fantastic masteries that fit right in with the current version of Lumine since they focus on dance and visual. Even ignoring that, she's a great dance visual support for all growing teams, so I highly recommend pulling for Mano while she's back. Wrapping up the first set, we have Kogane. Kogane has the honor of being the first limited SR support, and for her time was considered one of the better vocal supports in a generic sense. Having access to a vocal 50% passive with no downsides was nothing to sneeze at, and while she may have been power crept by SSR vocal Kogane, her access to a solid amount of stamina support and a situationally useful mental drain appeal brings value to her. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost, and Stamina support, and her unique support skill is Vocal Mastery Vocal reaching +9 at level 60. Her TFD idea is Vocal, her Insight token for Grad is Mental, and her proficiency in Landing Point is Vocal. Kogane's 1-star passive is a Vocal 15% up that requires you to be in the vocal position. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal 50% up as long as your mental is 49% or lower. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a +50 to vocal, and her 4-star appeal is a vocal 3.5 that reduces your current mental by 30%. Her event passive is a vocal 5% up as long as Kogane is on your team, and it has a 30% chance to activate twice. Kogane earns an A. A great comparison point is to look at the SR Torter that was released alongside Hinata 2 this year. They have the same level of vocal mastery, but Kogane has a bit more punch to her passive and appeal, at a cost. Stamina support helps a lot compared to Trouble Guard on Toru, and while SR Kogane has been easily replaced by the limited SSR, she's still a solid recommendation if you want a revenge passive and lack said SSR. I moderately recommend pulling for Kogane. Moving into our second banner, we start with Yuika. It's finally time. The return of one of the highest rated stories in Shiny Colors during the second year of the game, and still a very pivotal card for Yuika as a character. Yuika 3 has a relatively unique design style, being one of the few cases of scaling AoE appeals, this time focusing on revenge. Prior to the shift towards vocal Straylight teams in the meta, Yuika saw a resurgence with critically low mental teams to abuse her powerful AoE appeals. This was dubbed the Yuika canon among some of the fanbase. As of this current time, finding dedicated Yuika canon teams are much harder to spot, especially in the top ranks. You'll find Yuika on many Dance Antika teams to varying levels of success. Her memory appeal is still fairly potent to this day, and only really suffers from having less powerful passives compared to many 2020 and 2021 units. For being a fall 2019 card, Yuika has aged very gracefully. Her roles are Nuker, Revenge, Attack All, Attention Down, and she's a buffer. I moderately to highly recommend pulling for Yuika. If you have many Dance Antika cards, especially the supports, Yuika will fit in perfectly. Yuika's initial skill is a dance 0.44 to 2.2 appeal to all judges that scales based on how low your mental is, and follows up with an additional dance 0.44 to 2.2 single attack that increases its effectiveness the lower your attention is. At max, this becomes a dance 0.66 to 3.3 appeal on all judges that scales based on how low your mental is, and follows up with a dance 0.66 to 3.3 appeal, scaling on how low your attention is. This links into a vocal dance visual 75% up for 4 turns. Her 1-star passive is a dance 30% up and defense 30% down that requires your mental to be 75% or higher. This has a 40% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a dance 33% up and attention 33% down that requires an active damage cut buff. This has a 33% chance to activate 3 times. Her 3-star uncap is a dance plus 200, and her memory appeal once maxed out is a dance 2.0 that follows up with a dance 0.8 to 4.0 appeal that scales based on how low your attention is. For the support recommendations, Kiriko, Mamimi, and Sakuya are unmatched options for Yuika in this situation. Much of your strategy revolves around these 3, especially Mamimi and Kiriko, so keep that in mind. Limited Kogane still works for Unimos and SP generation despite being a vocal unit, and the rest are generally helpful dance cards. As for the alternatives, they require a little bit of extra work to function, as Kiriko and Mamimi can actively contradict each other. SR Sakuya can help stall for time, and the rest continue the trend of seeking out dance supports to help build SP and stats. Once again, no team recommendation for Yuika since she did just kinda fall out of favor. However, I do believe that she fits perfectly well on Dance Antika, so I'll link you a Dance Antika recommendation above. Yuika as a center earns anywhere from a B+ to an S. A lot of this is going to heavily depend on how well you can stack up attention down, and if it will last long enough for you to use in the Link appeal. For the most part, you won't be seeing a ton of Yuika centers because of Kogane 5, but you're welcome to try it out if you're feeling it. As a unit, she earns a pretty easy S to SS. If you properly build around this Yuika, she's one of the better units to have around. When you consider the fact that you can pair her with Onsen Kiriko or Wanderlust/Potato Mamimi passives for upwards of 700% dance before a 3.3 AoE appeal, her value goes off the charts. It takes a lot of dedicated support to build around her, but she is a force to be reckoned with when you can get the stars to align. Lastly, for the second set, we have Juri. Wrapping up the returning cards, we have Juri's first limited SSR. If it wasn't for the fact that Vocal Hokago exploded in popularity and support in the last few months, this Juri would be a highly coveted support to pull. With access to generic Dance plus 16 Mastery and a solid level of Unit Mastery SP, Juri provides more or less everything a dance team would want, especially for Hokago that appreciate the dance insight. She's a solid card overall. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, and Rest Boost, and she has two unique support masteries. Dance Mastery Dance reaching plus 16 at level 75, and Unit Mastery SP reaching plus 6 at level 70. Her TFD idea is Mental, her Insight token for Grad is Dance, and her proficiencies in Landing Point are in Dance and Mental. Juri's 1-star passive is a Dance 40% up and Defense 60% down that requires your Mental to be 74% or lower. This has a 10% chance to activate 3 times. Her 2-star passive is a Dance 70% up and Defense 60% down that requires your Mental to be 50% or higher. This has a 10% chance to activate 3 times. Her 3-star Uncap is a Dance plus 100, and her 4-star Appeal is a Dance 3.5 that buffs your Dance by 30% for 3 turns and increases your Attention by 30% for 3 turns. Her Event passive is a Dance 7% up that requires Juri on your team, and it has a 40% chance to activate twice. Juri earns anywhere from an A+ to an S-. Juri is another great example of a confident dance support, though the defense down debuff can be a bit daunting for teams that love to take attention up as well. Her appeal is very good, only recently being outclassed by Space Kaho. A good mental idea can be hard to find for TFD, and double proficiency in Landing Point might turn out to be really useful as we move forward. I moderately to highly recommend pulling for Juri. And that will do it for the video today. Thank you so much as always for watching. Next time we'll be talking about the upcoming SSR Mikoto banner. It sounds like she's going to be very similar to Nichika in design, so I look forward to seeing Cheese in Grade Fest soon. And I hope you are too. Till next time, I've been Cho. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.